On November 7th of 1872, a ship known as the Mary Celeste would leave the port of New York City carrying a cargo load of ethanol. The ship had 10 people on board, including the captain, his wife, his daughter, and 7 other sailors that the captain had handpicked for the expedition. The ship was intended to reach Italy. However, it was found floating off the coast of Gibraltar roughly a month later. When the ship was found, it appeared to be in seaworthy condition with its sails partially unfurled and one of its lifeboats missing. Upon further inspection by the crew of the ship that found it, they could not find any signs of struggle. There was a large compass post that weighed roughly 300 pounds that had been tipped over in the middle of the room for seemingly no reason, and none of the ethanol on board had been disturbed. Additionally, no personal belongings appeared to be missing other than, a coat or a pair of pants for each person, and everything was in its place. When the captain's log was eventually found, they discovered that he would take notes every 3 hours roughly each day, with the last note being early in the morning of 10 days earlier. So, what happened to this ship? Well, when it was taken to Gibraltar for a salvage hearing, they tried to determine what the cause would be in order to see if there was any form of insurance fraud at play. They initially considered that it could have been a mutiny. However, as I said, everything was in its place, including the weapons. There was no blood or signs of a struggle found on board, and so obviously mutiny was off the table. They then assumed that perhaps it was pirates that had come aboard in the middle of the night and taken everyone hostage without anyone putting up any resistance in order to take them for ransom. However, again, it's very likely that somebody at least would have resisted, and there was no signs of any struggle, and nothing was stolen by the pirates, and there was never any demand for the crew members' lives. They would also consider, obviously, insurance fraud. However, because the captain of the ship, along with none of its crew, would ever be seen, they quickly determined that, obviously, they had no need for the insurance because they weren't there. So, what happened to this ship? It's something that we don't even know now, despite several inquiries into it over the years. Nothing has ever shown up. Our most recent estimates are that it could have been bad weather that drove the whole crew off, but 10 people fitting in one lifeboat doesn't make sense in leaving all of their personals, and the ship was seen in fairly decent condition. They also considered that the crew might have thought that it was sinking. However, there was water on the boat. Since they made boats out of wood back then, it was not an unreasonable amount, and obviously because we found the boat, it did not sink. We have also assumed that it could have just been some unknown sea monster that went and grabbed all of them, but again, there probably would have been some form of struggle with that. So, you're probably wondering, Ethan, that was a really cool ghost ship story, but what does that have to do with you? What is some ship that we found in the 1800s and got sank a few years later for an actual insurance fraud have to do with you? And my answer to that is it has inspired the way that I see stories. And I think that we all have a story kind of like that has impacted the way that we tell stories, the way that we look at events and tales around us, and just how we experience the world. And this ghost ship, this unexplainable event has taught me that there are just some things that cannot be explained, but that maybe we will discover something by looking, that if we do not discover the answer, at the very least, we discover something about ourselves. We discover something about the world around us. We discover what kinds of stories get passed down throughout the years. We question the world around us and what it presents to us. And, well, it could have been any story that did this for me. And I'm sure it is a variety of stories for you guys that have impacted you in your own ways and sent you on your own paths, in your own ways of telling stories. This is the one that reached me. And this is the one that has affected how I see the world and, in a way, what I want to do, how I want to educate people going forward, and the kinds of things that I think need to be looked at.